I'm artist Lillian Gray, and today I would like to share the art of Wilma Cruise. Wilma Cruise is a South African artist known for her life-size human and animal sculptures. Even though she is known for sculpture, she is a multi-disciplinary artist. Large drawings or prints often accompany her sculpture exhibitions. A number of her ceramic sculptures have also been cast into bronze. To understand Wilma Cruise's art, we need to look at some critical influences on her art from her childhood. We must go back in time and ask ourselves, what happened while Wilma Cruise was growing up? Come with me as we journey through her life and try to understand her art. A quick reminder that you can buy various worksheets and activities based on this artist on our Teacher Pay Teachers store. They are designed specifically for various ages. Wilma Cruise was born in 1945 in South Africa. By investigating this date, you will soon realize South Africa was at the brink of adopting the apartheid policy. For 45 years, Wilma Cruise lived with a suppressive regime that separated people according to color. Things were tense in South Africa. However, globally, it was also an uncertain time. There was international tension surrounding the Cold War and the looming fear of communism. There was a constant threat of total destruction. The world was on the brink of a nuclear holocaust. This was paired with a bombardment of anti-communist propaganda during the Ronald Reagan era that resulted in various atrocities. This, together with the South African apartheid regime, created an atmosphere filled with anxiety and tension and constant fear of this looming disaster. Wilma Cruise often recreates this atmosphere that we're heading towards doom in her artworks. It's interesting to note that Wilma Cruise was raised in an atheist home. This was quite out of the norm for the time because it was an era of Christian national education in South Africa. You were expected to follow the rules of the government and the church. Wilma Cruise's parents, however, taught her to question everything as a child. They told her to never trust the government, religion, or authority. And this has led Wilma to question her beliefs, values, and identity, often within her life. She is constantly challenging and questioning people's thoughts and ideas in her art. Animals have always played a significant role in Cruise's life, from her dog Lulu, which was given to her on her 9th birthday, to her first horse. She has a deep and invested interest in working with and training animals, especially horses. She's also fascinated by baboons. In Cape Town, there's a constant fighting and strife between baboons and people. It is known as the Baboon Wars. Baboons are dangerous animals with sharp teeth, claws, and even sharper minds. Baboons come down from the mountain for easy feeding inside people's homes, causing havoc. But who is actually in whose home? Weren't the baboons there first? Humans' complex relationship with animals have profoundly influenced Wilma Cruise's art. Wilma was raised in a house filled with books and was always encouraged to read from a young age. Her father sparked her interest in psychology by giving her one specific book by Freud. She was so drawn to psychology that she studied it after school and completed her degree. She often refers to her love and knowledge of psychology in her artworks. She regularly depicts humans' internal conflicts in her art. We as humans tend to project a certain image to the outside world that isn't always truthful and consistent with our inner worlds, and Wilma loves playing around with this. Eventually, Wilma Cruise became a full-time artist. In the 80s, she became well known for pioneering large figurative sculptures. She was one of the first South African artists to create life-size sculptures out of clay. In 1994, apartheid ended in South Africa, and just after that, Cruise completed her master's degree in fine art. Later, in 2016, she completed her doctorate in visual arts at the University of Stellenbosch. Cruise has had massive success in her art career. She has had over more than 29 solo exhibitions. She has curated many and has also been part of countless group exhibitions. She has exhibited throughout South Africa and various places internationally. She is also an award-winning artist with many accolades. Now that you are familiar with Wilma Cruise's life, let's delve into some of the key themes found in her work. You will quickly see how these life experiences have influenced her art. Number 1. Global warming. As I explained previously, Wilma often creates an atmosphere that a looming disaster is near in her art. The current disaster hanging over the human race is global warming. We are destroying our planet at an alarming rate. We are raising the Earth's temperature by releasing too many greenhouse gases. We are polluting water sources, groundwater, and our oceans. We are destroying forests, habitats, and biodiversity. Global warming is connected to our relationship with animals. Did you know that cows are to blame for many greenhouse gases? Yes, cow farts. It's a real problem. Cow farts and poops produce large quantities of methane, a powerful greenhouse gas. It accounts for nearly 60% of all greenhouse gas emissions. So we need to change the way we consume meat and how we source meat. Wilma Cruise's artwork often warns us about climate change. It is time that we as humans take responsibility for our impact on our planet and change our ways. Many animal species are now endangered due to our careless actions. Wilma often inverts the relationship between humans and animals and flips it on its head. And this leads me to the next theme in Wilma Cruise's art. Number 2. Speciesism. Speciesism? What on earth is that? We know what is racism and feminism, but what is speciesism? It is our relationship with animals and how we treat them. Now, some of you might shrug your shoulders and say, "But Lillian, I love animals. This isn't an issue for me." Well, yes, who doesn't love cute bunnies and kittens? But do you truly love animals? Do you treat all animals the same? As humans, we tend to value some animals more than others. Let me ask you this. Do you eat chicken? Do you enjoy a nice barbecue or grill? Do you wear makeup or use eye drops? Well, many of these products harm animals. What is the difference between throwing away a sack of kittens in the cold and killing chickens and cows on an industrial scale? Why do we treat dogs so much better than cows? Why do we have more empathy for animals that look like us than we have for animals that are super different? We treat pigs as if though their well-being is unimportant, but we adore horses and consider their well-being very important, even though their awareness and mental capacities are similar. How do we reconcile these strong feelings many of us have about certain animals, mainly the cute ones like puppies and kittens, with how we use animals in our everyday lives? We don't just use animals, we harm them. Bunnies are used to test cosmetics and eye drops. New products are used in their eyes and left there for a while. Then it's rinsed out and they are inspected for any side effects. The process is often excruciating and can blind the bunnies. Bunnies are used for this because they do not have tear ducts, so they cannot flush the product out of their eyes by themselves. Once they go blind, they are no longer needed and are killed. To keep up with humans' insatiable demand for chicken eggs, we have had to set up large factory farms. These farms keep chickens in tiny, tiny spaces the size of a paper. Their beaks are often cut down to keep them from pecking each other, and once they no longer lay enough eggs, they are killed. These are just a couple examples of the conditions animals experience for the gain of humans. We never dream of using another human in these ways. But why do we think it's okay if we do so with animals? We use all kinds of arguments to justify our actions. Some see humans clearly as being superior to animals. Since humans are currently at the top, we're the best. We can pretty much do whatever we want. Another rationale is that this is the way it's always been. And it's true. Humans have been dominating non-humans for a very long time. But the fact that something has been a certain way for a long time says nothing about whether it is good or bad. One of the strongest arguments for using animals is the argument of need. The problem is that humans can be perfectly healthy without eating animals. So yes, you need to eat, but you do not need to eat animals. There was a time in our history when it was common for one group of people to dominate others. Now we look back at this with horror and shame. Australian philosopher Peter Singer predicts that there will be a time when our descendants look back on us and the way we treated animals with the same reaction. He argues that if it's not okay to do it to humans, it is not okay to do it to animals. So, speciesism presents us with strong reasons to re-evaluate our treatment of animals. Why, for example, do we believe it's wrong to eat fluffy, but okay to eat bacon? Artist Wilma Cruise's work places importance on the existence and lives of animals. It confronts us with our prejudice towards animals. She forces us to ask, are we truly better than them? Are we more important? And even though we are on the top of the food chain, we are still part of an ecosystem. Any apex predator that destroys the environment and the ecosystem it depends on will eventually destroy itself. It's like a lion starving to death after killing all the impalas. So, as the apex predator on Earth, we better tread carefully or we will destroy ourselves. We are part of a carefully designed ecosystem and we have a big responsibility towards it. Common animals featured in Wilma Cruise's artwork includes monkeys, baboons, sheep, horses, and dogs. Wilma enjoys observing humans speak to animals, such as when animals are being trained. For a trainer and a horse to truly move as one and respond to each other's needs, they need to be able to read each other's body language. This is a form of interspecies communication. And this leads me to the next theme in Wilma Cruise's work. Number 3, liminality. Liminality is the state of transition between one stage to the next. The term limen comes from the Latin for threshold. It is the threshold separating one space from another. Wilma often sets her artworks in a space that she calls the in-between world, the threshold boundary line between humans and animals. According to her, it is a space where being human is not super important and where human language doesn't work. An example of this is the artwork known as the all-knowing pig. The pig acts like a human, standing on its back legs and wearing a ribbon necktie. The pig is not making direct eye contact, yet it feels like it is aware of us looking at it. The pig is an outsider who seems to observe life knowingly. It's almost smirking, as if it's complicit in some hidden joke. It seems to possess some special power, like it can predict the future or affect the outcome of events. The pig seems to be between the human and the animal world, standing with one leg on either side of the threshold. In Wilma's series of exhibitions called the Alice sequence, Wilma Cruise created a character she calls Hybrid Piglet. Once again, this is a fusion between a human and a pig. However, this one is a statue. It stands up like a human on its hind legs with its arms firmly pressed against its sides. The piglet is always positioned outside the group looking in. Unlike most of Wilma's sculptures, she has arms and a mouth open in laughter. As a pig, she is destined for the slaughter. However, she has a unique personality. She is laughing at what's happening in front of her in the exhibition space. Hybrid Piglet is not a human nor a pig. She is caught in the in-between world. Many of Wilma Cruise's sculptures live within this world, on that threshold. Number 4, feminism. Wilma Cruise is also an ardent feminist. Feminism is the belief that women and men should be treated equally. Cruise's interest in feminism has been a long-standing theme within her work. Her work often includes her personal views and experiences as a woman. She has depicted her experiences as a new mother and the responsibility of nursing and raising a child. She has also depicted her struggles as a female artist. A sculpture that illustrates her use of personal life experience and her feminist beliefs is Self-Portrait 1992. It is the last sculpture from a series Wilma Cruise created. Wilma Cruise created these works in a response to the murder of her nephew Nicholas Cruise in 1990. However, I would like to focus on how she depicts herself as a woman in the last sculpture. She has turned her back on the audience and tries to find solace in a wall. Her arms are folded over her chest, as if she is hunched in pain and sadness. It seems like she is trying to comfort or even protect herself. The artwork is about anger and pain. The sculpture expresses a sense of vulnerability and defeat. Wilma shows us how the human body can be vulnerable and remember pain. The body stores all of our desires, traumas, losses, and needs. Her sculpture was inspired by the famous French sculptor Auguste Rodin's statue of Eve. Rodin captures Eve being expelled from the Garden of Eden. Her head is bowed and her arms are locked over her upper torso, reflecting shame, self-exposure, and alienation. Wilma's sculpture is not sexual. It is naked. However, it's a raw self-exposure of emotion. The overly simplified face depicts a loss of identity. Another work that focuses on feminism is one of Cruise's public works that can be seen at the National Monument to the Women of South Africa at the Union Building in Pretoria. The artwork is called Strike the Women, Strike the Rock. It commemorates the Women's March to the Union Buildings on the 9th of August 1956 to protest against the apartheid pass laws. The government commissioned this artwork to celebrate female rights in South Africa. It is a gentle reminder of what can happen when women unite. Number 5. Famous literature. Wilma is well read and often includes references to famous books and mythology in her artworks. She has referenced Dante's Inferno, the Grimm's Brothers fairy tales, and the Canterbury Tales in various artworks. Her exhibition titled 1984 Fight or Flight, Recycle, Reuse, Reconfigure was inspired by the dystopian novel of George Orwell. The most famous literature reference in her artworks is found in the series of exhibitions known as the Alice Diaries. It is based on the famous Lewis Carroll Alice series. Wilma also often includes text and annotations in her artworks, and sometimes even recipes. She says that I love words and I love written text, and in my drawings and prints, text is often the foreground. Number 6. Power. Wilma Cruise often plays with the concept of power. She asks, who has the power? Why do they have the power? She often depicts various figures as being powerless, mute, and vulnerable. Her figures are always oversimplified, even missing a few limbs, such as arms. Some lack details in their faces, lacking identity. The figures become anonymous and represent the entire human race. By rendering them without a mouth and without arms, they become completely mute. This illustrates their inability to communicate effectively through language. Language is useless without hands to gesture and a mouth to speak. The human figures seem docile, lazy, and lifeless. They fail to act. The humans generally seem to be unaware of their surroundings and the outside world. Wilma simplifies both human and animal forms. However, her animals have slightly more detail and appear to be more alert and aware. Now that you understand the key themes in Wilma Cruise's artworks, let's learn more about her process. Wilma keeps a visual diary. She scribbles and sketches all her ideas and thoughts into a journal, often jumping back and forth between concepts. In some of her exhibitions, she has even framed various pages of her visual diary. Part of her series, known as the Alice Diaries, contains 33 pages of preparatory work where the artist has recorded quotes, drawn doodles, and made observations of the novel Alice Through the Looking Glass. Wilma explains that she starts with reading, highlighting some text, rewriting the essential parts of the book, and making quick sketches of her initial ideas. She then decides which ideas would translate better into sculptures and which need to remain drawings or become prints. When creating a sculpture, she works hollow and not with solid shapes. It is a complex process that she has refined over many years. After the clay sculpture is made, she fires it in the kiln. Looking closely at Wilma's sculptures, you will see fingerprints and scrape marks. It is clear that these statues were sculpted by hand. Her clay sculptures are sometimes used as a mold to create life-size bronze sculptures. This is usually done for outdoor installations, since bronze is more suited for harsh environments. Creating a bronze sculpture is quite a monumental task. It is also dangerous due to the extreme heat that melts the bronze. It has to be made in a foundry that has all the special equipment needed. I would like to encourage you to please Google a video on the bronze casting process. It's quite fascinating. Now that you know how Wilma Cruise creates her artworks, let's move on to some of her most important works you should know. Artwork number 1, Chanticleer. Okay, so what on earth is going on here? We have a rather large chicken rooster standing on top of a dog, and the dog is standing on top of a human, which seems to be a woman, and she has no arms. Sorry, what? Here we see Wilma Cruise depicting two of her beloved themes, famous literature, and speciesism. First of all, let's look at the name. What on earth is a Chanticleer? Chanticleer comes from Geoffrey Chaucer's Canterbury Tales. The Chanticleer is a proud and fierce rooster who dominates the barnyard. With all of his splendor and great looks, he is also greatly feared and mightily respected by all in the story. The sculpture is also based on the fairy tale by the Grimm brothers called the Bremen Town Musicians. In the story, a donkey, a dog, a cat, and a rooster chases off a band of robbers out of a cottage. They do this by standing on top of each other and creates a massive amount of noise. When one of the robbers attempt to retake the cottage, the cat scratches him, the donkey kicks him, the dog bites him, and the cockerel shrieks at him. In the perception of the robbers, the animals appear as one big unit. It might be a mighty giant or morphed creature. The animals gain access to the cottage where they live happily ever after. Wilma Cruise fondly remembers being told this story as a child. This famous story inspired her to create a sculpture about speciesism. Usually, humans are at the top of the food chain. However, now it seems that the animals have teamed up and they are standing on top of the human. The human is powerless and has no arms. It seems lazy and even docile. Maybe it has surrendered to the fact that it is doomed. It is now at the mercy of the animals. The dog, a Boston Terrier, is looking down at the human, and the human is tilting its head slightly up. In their gaze, they are acknowledging each other. It is not friendly nor affectionate. It is a moment in time when both realize that the power is now flipped. It's also interesting to note that the power between the dog and the rooster has also been turned on its head. Most farm dogs are valued more than chickens and roosters. Dogs usually chase, bite, and often kill chickens. Dog is man's best friend, while chickens is a popular lunch or dinner. In the sculpture, however, the chicken is on top of the dog. This sculpture makes us question our attitudes towards animals and how we treat them. Ill treatment of animals will haunt us once our planet is destroyed and we can no longer live on Earth. We will be rendered useless, powerless, like this body, lying in the water, almost drowning. Artwork number 2. Poor Horace, watching the hours. In this sculpture, we see two horses. Horace, the one horse, is standing with his feet connected to a trolley. He cannot move unless someone pushes him. His doppelganger is upside down, hanging in straps from a crane with a pulley system being lifted off. Now, usually humans celebrate horses for their grace and their power. However, Horace is rendered immobile. He is anchored and relies on others to move him around. His movement has been stolen. He doesn't moan or even makes a sound. He just bows his head and accepts his fate. He is no longer needed. Humans used to use horses for mobility. Now these horses are immobile. This sculpture addresses our attitudes towards animals and how they change depending on their usefulness to us. Number 3, the Alice Diaries. This is not one artwork, but rather a collection of many artworks. For the past couple of years, Wilma Cruise has been consistently working on a series of art exhibitions, all drawing inspirations from the same source. The series of exhibitions is based on the Alice book series by Lewis Carroll. The first one was the popular Alice in Wonderland. This is the first book Wilma Cruise can remember reading as a child. She has always been fond of the story. The reason she references these books in her artwork is because of the human and animal relationship in them. In the book, the animals have all the knowledge. The roles between the humans and animals are completely reversed and flipped on its head. The animals know how Wonderland works, and Alice doesn't. In this upside-down rabbit hole, it is never clear who Alice truly is. All sense of who she is has fallen away. She is not even sure what size she is. A caterpillar asks her, "Who are you?" and a pigeon asks her, "What are you?" Alice does not have the answer to either questions. The caterpillar's question is significant. Alice represents the entire human race. So, who is Alice? Who are we? Are we truly superior to animals? Do we deserve our place at the top of the pyramid? With this series, Wilma Cruise questions the power humans hold over animals. In Wonderland, various animals also reflect typical human behavior back at us. The white rabbit acts like a modern corporate executive, forever rushing off somewhere, lamenting his lateness. His task is urgent, but it's never made clear to Alice or to us what his urgent business truly is about. The novel also flips around how animals look at us. We often judge and analyze animals, and we are not used to the concept of them looking and observing and judging us. In the novel, there is strong animal character, and they guide Alice through Wonderland. However, the animal's advice and guidance isn't very helpful. The Cheshire Cat appears and disappears, sometimes leaving only his enigmatic smile behind. He knows, but just what he knows remains unclear. His godlike presence and ironic smile confuses us even more instead of creating reassurance. Of these series of works, I would like to zoom in and discuss one specific installation. This particular artwork was inspired by the second book in the series, Alice Through the Looking Glass. Alice again enters a fantastical world, this time by climbing through a mirror into the reflection. Here she finds that everything is reversed, including logic, just like a reflection. For example, she has to run to stay still. She has to walk away from an object in order to approach it. The installation consists of hundreds of sculpted figures. It seems like it invades the entire gallery space, with figures scattered all across the floor. The main gallery area is filled with 1,000 clay babies. Watching over them are a few large animal sculptures, and each of these animals can be found in the book. On closer inspection, the babies are missing arms, some are missing legs. Various babies are busy transforming into animals and have piggy snouts. The large animal figures looms over the babies. They sit silently, watching. This creates quite an eerie feeling. The human figures on the ground almost seems like shells or fossils. They are no longer alive, just scattered on the floor. Wilma has referred to them as the recent dead. The huge animal sculptures are silent witnesses to the human condition and its suffering, which finally leads to its total destruction. The fantasy world filled with nonsense in Carol's novels allows Wilma Cruise to comment on the state of society. She strives to create meaning of an increasingly confusing and dangerous world. The viewer is challenged to think about how this role reversal between animals and humans have occurred. What has led to this destruction of humanity? The viewer is led to consider the way we are living and change our unsustainable ways with regards to mass production and overpopulation. The central theme of the Alice Project is that the human race is heading towards doom. It creates this anxious awareness of total loss of natural environment. It becomes clear that Wilma Cruise has reread the world of Alice in Wonderland as a nightmare. Alice's experience in Wonderland is filled with madness. It is a raw wasteland of abandoned babies. This artwork forces us, the viewer, to also become a distant observer of this madness. We are looking down at the gallery floor and not at the walls. We are observing this chaos and devastation from a godlike perspective. We are made aware of how vulnerable Alice truly is. It's time to fight for our world and realize that we are only a small part of the ecosystem. Now, where can you see Wilma Cruise's art? There are a few places in South Africa where you can enjoy Wilma Cruise's sculptures. There's one in the streets of Stellenbosch. There are a few sculptures in various sculpture gardens. One of my favorites is located on the Tokara wine estate. She also has some public and corporate collections at various places, such as the Iziko Museum. And that's it for our video on South African female artist Wilma Cruise. I trust this video has challenged you to reconsider your ideas on how we treat animals. I am artist Lillian Gray, and I love teaching art and art history. Remember to subscribe and ring the bell to get notified when a new video is released. I'd like to remind you that you can shop various worksheets for all ages online on our Teachers Pay Teachers website. Connect with us on social media and let us know what video you would like to see next. Until next time!